You are not lazy. That sentence alone explains more about procrastination than most advice ever will. Because when you stare at a task and feel your mind slide away from it, something ancient may be happening inside you. Not a modern flaw, not a moral failure, a survival system. For most of human history, your brain did not live in a world of deadlines, emails, and unread messages. It lived in a world where wasting energy could get you killed, where the wrong choice could cost food, safety, or status, where later was often smarter than now. That is where procrastination begins, not in a weak character, in an old brain. A brain built for a world that no longer exists. And once you see that, procrastination stops looking like a habit problem. It starts looking like a clash between the past and the present. Picture a human being tens of thousands of years ago. No calendar, no clock reminding him a task is due by 5 p.m. Only weather, hunger, and the constant possibility that today could become a very bad day. In that world, energy mattered. Every unnecessary movement cost something. Every risky action carried consequences. So the brain evolved to ask one question before everything else. Is this worth the cost? That question is the hidden accountant in the mind, always checking whether effort is worth spending right now. Procrastination may be what happens when the brain decides the cost of a task feels too high in the present, even when the future cost will be much worse. Your brain is not only measuring difficulty, it is measuring discomfort. Will this be boring, uncertain, embarrassing? Will I fail? Those questions trigger the same avoidance systems that once protected humans from danger. In the modern world, a spreadsheet is not a predator. A phone call is not a pack of wolves. But the nervous system does not always know that. It reacts first. It explains later. So, once a task feels unpleasant, the brain searches for relief. Not tomorrow, right now. A quick scroll, a snack, a meaningless tidying frenzy, anything that postpones the discomfort. For an ancestor in a dangerous environment, that bias toward immediate relief may have been sensible, but the same instinct that once saved energy can now sabotage ambition. Here's the deeper reason why. Your brain does not experience the future the way it experiences the present. A threat happening now feels real. A threat happening later feels smaller, softer, less urgent. Psychologists call this temporal discounting. The future gets mentally shrunk so it has less power over your decision right now. That is why "I'll suffer later" rarely beats "I feel bad now." The modern world runs on delayed consequences. Study now, benefit later. Save now, relax later. The benefits are real, but invisible in the moment. Meanwhile, the discomfort of starting is loud and immediate. So procrastination becomes a battle between two versions of you, one that wants relief and one that wants a future. The relief version usually speaks first. But procrastination is not always about time. Often, it's about emotion. People don't delay because a task is hard alone. They delay because the task feels like a mirror. A blank page can feel like judgment. A difficult conversation can feel like rejection. In other words, procrastination is often not the avoidance of work. It is the avoidance of a feeling.
That matters because emotions like fear, shame, and social anxiety are ancient too, older than language itself. A human who feared embarrassment in a small group was more likely to survive than one who ignored social risk. Being rejected by the group was devastating. Social standing was not cosmetic, it was survival. So when a task threatens your identity or competence, the brain may treat it like danger, not because it's irrational, because it's old. And here is the hidden twist. The brain is not only avoiding pain, it's also trying to protect identity. Because if you never fully begin, you never fully fail. A delayed start becomes a shield. If I do not begin, I cannot be measured. If I cannot be measured, I cannot be exposed. Procrastination becomes a way to protect the story you tell yourself about who you are. This is also why procrastination spikes when a task is ambiguous. The brain hates uncertainty. An unclear task just hangs there, draining energy without resolution. So the mind drifts towards something with sharper edges, which is why people clean, organize, or busy themselves with tiny tasks when a larger, more meaningful one is looming. The small task has a neat beginning and an obvious end. The big task, by contrast, contains possibility, failure, judgment, change, and the ancient brain can interpret possibility as danger. This is also where the modern self-help story goes wrong. People are told procrastination is a character issue, as if more shame will solve it. But shame is fuel for avoidance. The more a task threatens your sense of self, the more your brain wants to escape. So you avoid, you feel guilty, the task grows larger in your mind, and you avoid again. The loop tightens. Is procrastination actually adaptive? Sometimes in small doses. Not every delay is a flaw. Sometimes waiting gives you better information, and hesitation saves you. Evolution rarely creates perfect systems. It creates good enough systems for a certain environment. Caution, energy conservation, sensitivity to risk, these traits were useful in a world of uncertainty. But in a world of deadlines and long-term projects, they can misfire. That is why so many people feel trapped by something they know is irrational. The problem is not that the brain is broken, the problem is that it is old. And this is also why procrastination is not solved by information alone. People already know they should start. They already know the cost of delay. Knowledge does not automatically overpower an emotional threat response. The brain doesn't change because it's scolded. It changes when the task becomes less threatening, less vague, more survivable. When the first step is small enough to feel possible, and the future reward is made more immediate. This is not the story of a lazy species, it is the story of a species whose survival software keeps running in a world that changed too fast. The same brain that delays a hard task is also the brain that learned to make fire, tell stories, and cross oceans. The human mind is capable of extraordinary patience, but it had to learn that patience. It was not given freely. It had to be built against instinct. That is why every act of starting is more than productivity. It is a small rebellion, a refusal to let ancient fear make every decision, a choice to tell the old brain, this is not a predator, this is not a famine, this is discomfort, and I can survive it. That is the real turning point, not when the task becomes easy, when the task becomes less powerful than the fear around it. Procrastination feels personal, but it is also historical, a message from a body that evolved for scarcity and immediate survival, now living in a world of abundance and delayed reward. A creature capable of building satellites can still freeze before opening a document. A species that crossed deserts can still avoid a phone call. But maybe that is the deeper lesson. We are not divided into disciplined and lazy. We are divided inside ourselves. Part of us belongs to the present, part of us belongs to the past. And progress begins when the future becomes vivid enough to compete with instinct. We are still carrying a mind that learned to hesitate when hesitation kept it alive. And every time we begin anyway, we are doing something very new. We are outgrowing the world that made us. If you're fascinated by the hidden forces that shaped human behavior, subscribe, because the next story may change the way you see your own mind.